Hi, this is Mrs. Holub, and we're going to be reading Chapter 10 of Stargirl today. If you remember at the end of Chapter 9, we had quite a bit of foreshadowing where Leo is so excited about the miracle taking place at school. Everything's been so wonderful with the kids being kind and positive to each other. And then suddenly, as he calls it a miracle to Archie, Archie says, "Better hope it's not," because miracles don't last very long. So we are going to start chapter 10, and in chapter 10 there are a couple of different really important events that take place and a couple of important stories that tell us where Stargirl is going and really give us some good insights about how things are changing through the book. So things do really pick up here. Try to make sure you're using all of your strategies that we've been working with to really comprehend this chapter. And if anything gets confusing, stop the video, go back and listen again. Okay, so take your time with this. Really enjoy it. Here we go, chapter 10. All my resistance to putting Stargirl on hot seat vanished. "Okay," I said to Kevin, "let's do it. Schedule her." He started off. I grabbed his arm. "Wait, ask her first." He laughed. "Right, like she's going to say no." No one had ever said no to the hot seat. Any reluctance to answering personal or embarrassing questions always yielded to the lure of appearing on TV. If anyone could resist that lure, I figured it would be Stargirl. That day after school, Kevin came at me, thumbs up and grinning. "It's a go." She said yes. First, I was surprised. That didn't fit my impression of her. I didn't know that this was an early glimpse of something I was soon to see much more of. Behind the dazzling talents and differentness, she was far more normal than I had realized. Then I was elated. We yipped, we high-fived, we saw visions of our most popular show ever. This was mid-January. We set a date of February 13th, the day before Valentine's. We wanted a full month for build-up. With my resistance now gone, I jumped in with both feet. We planned a promo campaign. We got art students to do posters. We jotted down questions for Kevin to ask in case the jury ran out. Fat chance of that happening. We didn't have to post the usual jury notice. Dozens of kids volunteered. And then things changed. So at this point, I'm going to ask you to think about what just happened on that page. First page of chapter 10, we just found out that Stargirl has agreed to doing Hot Seat. And we know now even Leo's excited about it. So I want you to think about what happened on this page, and I want you to write down any questions you have. There were some tough words there. So it could be a question about a word. It could be a question about what's going to happen, what you're curious about, anything at all, or confused about for that matter. Or you can do a prediction. It ends with another bit of foreshadowing. It says, "and then things changed again." So you could also make a prediction about what's going to happen. But make either a question or prediction, pause the video, and then after you've written that down in your notebooks, we'll resume where we left off. Okay, so hopefully you got a good question or prediction down that we'll be able to share and think about. We're going to resume with page 44 at the top, and you can see at the top there's 3 asterisks that Jerry Spinelli puts. This is just to let you know we're going to have a whole different setting here. So pay attention to where and when we are reading right now. In the courtyard of our school stood a 5-foot sheet of plywood in the shape of a roadrunner. It was a bulletin board strictly for student use, always taped intact with messages and announcements. One day we found the following computer printout taped to the plywood roadrunner. "I pledge allegiance to United Turtles of America and to the fruit bats of Borneo, one planet in the Milky Way, incredible with justice and black bean burritos for all." Handwritten across the bottom were the words, "This is how she says the Pledge of Allegiance." No one had to tell us who she was. Apparently, she was overheard in homeroom as we said the pledge each morning. As far as I knew, we were not a particularly patriotic bunch. I didn't hear people saying they were offended. Some thought it was funny. Some giggled and nodded knowingly as if to say, "There she goes again." On the following mornings, more than one kid was heard reciting the new pledge. Within days, a news story wildfired through the student body. A senior girl, Anna Grisdale, lost her grandfather after a long illness. The funeral took place on a Saturday morning. For a while, everything seemed routine. The crowd of people at the church, the line of cars with their headlights on, the smaller group clustered around the grave for the final farewell. After the brief gravesite service, the funeral director handed everyone a long stem flower. Upon leaving, each mourner laid his or her flower over the casket. This was when Anna Grisdale first noticed Stargirl. Through her own tears, Anna could see that Stargirl was crying also. She wondered if Stargirl had been at the church as well. Even more, she wondered why Stargirl was there at all. Could she have been friends with her grandfather without Anna knowing it? Anna's mother asked her who the unfamiliar girl was. Afterward, the mourners were invited to Anna's house for lunch. About 30 came. There was a buffet of cold cuts and salads and cookies. Stargirl was there, chatting with members of the family, but not eating or drinking anything. Suddenly, Anna heard her mother's voice. It was no louder than the others, but it was different. "What are you doing here?" Sudden stillness. Everyone staring. They were in front of the picture window. Anna had never seen her mother so angry. Mrs. Grisdale had been very close to her father. They had built an addition to their house so that he could live with them. She glared down at Stargirl. "Answer me." Stargirl gave no reply. "You didn't even know him, did you?" Still, Stargirl said nothing. "Did you?" And then Anna's mother was flinging open the front door and pointing as if banishing her to the desert. "Leave my house." Stargirl left. Danny Pike was 9 years old. I should stop there because, in case you didn't realize, that story is done. Now we're going to another story. That was the story of Anna Grisdale with her grandfather dying and Stargirl going to the funeral. And we don't know why she was there. If she knew the grandfather, we can just make inferences. We can use what we already know about Stargirl and what we think happened, and that's all we're going to get. So be thinking, what was that all about? And how do you feel about what Stargirl did and what happened? Now we're moving on to another story that's being told around through the school. Danny Pike was 9 years old. He loved to ride the bicycle he had gotten for his birthday. One day after school, he lost control and plowed into a mailbox. He broke his leg, but that wasn't the worst of it. A blood clot developed. He was airlifted to Children's Hospital in Phoenix, where he was operated on. For a while, it was touch and go, but within a week, he was on his way back home. All this was reported in the Micah Times as was the celebration when Danny arrived at his home on Pinion Lane. The 5-column photo in the Times showed Danny on his father's shoulders, surrounded by a mob of neighbors. In the foreground was a new bike and a big sign that read, "Welcome home, Danny." It wasn't until days later that the front page photo appeared on the Plywood Roadrunner. We gathered around to see something we hadn't noticed before. An arrow from a thick red felt tip marker pointed at one of the tiny faces crowded into the frame. It was the face of a girl, beaming, as if Danny Pike were her little brother back from the dead. It was Stargirl. And then there was the bike. The various members of the Pike family, parents, grandparents, each thought someone else had bought Danny the new bicycle. Several days went by before they discovered to their great surprise that none of them had. So where did the bike come from? High schoolers who heard the story and saw the picture had a pretty good idea. Apparently, the Pikes did not. The bike became the focus of a family squabble. Mr. Pike was mad because nobody he asked would admit to buying the bike, and probably because he hadn't done it himself. Mrs. Pike was mad because no way, not for at least 1 year, would she allow Danny back on wheels. One night, the new, still unridden bike wound up at the Pikes' front curb with the trash cans. By the time the trash collectors came the next day, it was gone. Danny got a BB gun instead. So now this is the last paragraph, and this is kind of, I think, something pretty nice that Jerry Spinelli does for us. He basically takes our job, which we always say is to summarize at the end of the chapter, and he kind of does it for us. So listen to it, and then I want to add one little bit of criticism, not to be rude, but you'll probably agree. It reads, the Pledge of Allegiance, the Grisdale funeral, the Danny Pike affair. These things were noted, but they had no immediate impact on Stargirl's popularity at school. Notice the first thing that was missing in the beginning of the chapter? He never mentioned Stargirl agreeing to be on Hot Seat. So I would throw that in there in the beginning. But everything else sounds great. Those were the important things that happened in this chapter. And notice he sums it up by showing all those things that happened had no effect on Stargirl's popularity. That means, according to the kids, she's still very popular and well-liked. And here's some more foreshadowing. It ends with, not so with cheerleading and the boys' basketball season. So again, another bit of foreshadowing at the end of the chapter, basically saying she's still popular, but things are going to change when she starts cheering for basketball. So we're going to finish the chapter there. What I need you to do now is I need to get you to give me a reaction. What did you think about that chapter? Could you comment for me on one of the events? Maybe you want to tell me about how you feel about Hot Seat. Maybe you want to comment on the fact that she went to that funeral and basically got kicked out. Why do you think she was there? How do you feel about her getting kicked out? And then finally, the Danny Pike, the bike thing. Who do you think bought the bike? How do you feel about the reaction of his family to throwing the bike out just because they couldn't figure out who bought the bike and it bothered them that they couldn't figure that out? So what were your reactions? Do you have predictions for me? What's going to happen? You can tell me anything at all as long as it's in regards to something that went on in this chapter and how you feel about it. Give me maybe 2 or 3 sentences and that will be fantastic. I hope, if nothing else at all, that you are enjoying Stargirl. That's the main purpose of reading it. So hope you're liking it. Can't wait to start chapter 11. Have a great rest of your day.